Good day to you, loved one, and welcome again to this vlog, which is probably the last episode of this series regarding the chronology from Adam to the return of Jesus Christ and a little beyond to the end of this eon, which is a demonstration, I could say myself, it's a demonstration of God's splendid time fabric, the way He has structured everything and the way He has accomplished everything. So let's start immediately. What we will do is we will come to the end of the slides. I will give you a couple of reminders again, very important. And then we will go as a kind of a comprehensive summary. We will go through the whole overview from beginning to the end so that you can really observe and also absorb the information one last time. And that will give you a good overview, I think, of the whole chronology. So let's start. So we ended here. So 1 year before the end of, I would say, this eon, or in any case, the end of the day of humanity, and that is 6 millennia. So in the year 1 year later, in 2034, I guess the autumn, because that's the biblical start of the year or end of the year. So that is the end of the Jubilee year, so the last year of the 6 millennia, and also the end of the reconstruction and restoration, I guess, I'm not sure, including lifting the curse of the earth. Let me say something about the curse, because as you probably know, the earth was cursed from the moment Adam and Eve sinned. When Adam transgressed, God says, I'm going to put a curse on the earth. What does a curse mean? A curse means weakness. Weakness. So a sign of a curse, for instance, are thorns and distils. I don't know if that's the English word, but in any case, thorns. That is a sign of a curse. But how is it a sign of weakness? Quite simple. Because a thorn is nothing more than a branch that has not been finished. Because the growth strength is too weak, is too low. That is a thorn. So if you didn't know that, you know it now. And I think it's good to say, so if the curse is lifted off the earth, the growing power of the earth will be tremendous. So like my good friend Martin Sender always says, one grape will not be like this anymore, but more like volleyball size. And a watermelon, that would be the size of a Volkswagen. I'm not sure. So the thing is, the growth power will be enormous. It will be completely different. The earth will be restored. That's the whole thing. It's a restoration of the earth, of all things, for that matter. Restoration of all things. And do not confuse this terminology, restoration of all things, with the end of God's goal with the whole creation, because that is a completely different animal. Because that is not only restoration of all things, no, that's a completely new creation, and that will be taken care of, and everything will be life beyond death. So that's like way further in time. But restoration of all things will be the fact in the 7th millennium, when Jesus will reign on earth with Israel as a royal priesthood. Okay, so this marks also the end of the 6,000 years, or the 6 days, in which mankind has tried to govern things on the earth, and that failed miserably, with the pinnacle, of course, that horrible reign of the beast, the last 3.5 years of the 70th week. So it also marks then the start of the kingdom of the heavens on earth, because it has a heavenly character, but it is on earth. That's the location. That's also the 7th millennium, or the 7th day. So the Sabbath, the real Sabbath of rest and peace, duration 1,000 years. And now then Jesus Christ will rule the earth, and that will be successful. Okay, so I will go through a reminder first. Again, I remind you that you are the owner of your vision. You are not the owner of my vision. I am the owner of my vision and my opinion. So if you learn something of this series, fantastic. That I hope it's a blessing to you. You learn from it and you grow by it. That's good. But you form your own vision afterwards, and you share your vision with others, and then it's yours, and you take ownership, because you're a leader, and leadership is a mindset, remember? So just as a reminder, if you're not sure for yourself, please just say so. Just like myself, I'm not sure of some things, and I just mentioned that things are just an assumption based on other calculations. So just an assumption. So never say Peter, or someone else for that matter, said that this or the other, did that, this, that, or the other. So if you still do, be my guest. It's your responsibility. You will take accountability for that, but you will fail to take ownership in that sense, and you shift that responsibility to someone else. That's also called projection. So remember that anger at someone or disappointment in someone, let's say all my estimations here are completely wrong. Let's say they are wrong, that wrong. What will you do? Will you say that Peter, he was completely wrong, he brought me into confusion? That is projection. You brought you into confusion because you listened to me. It's your responsibility. Just like it's my responsibility if I listen to others and I decide to adopt some things or not, or reject some things. So take responsibility. That's my whole message here. Okay. And again, the agreements that were in advance, I'm going to do this again at the end. Again, this vision is only shared based on my current positions. In no way does this study purport to serve as a starting point or other opinions or study. You can do it, but then you mention it, just that that it's your opinion from now on. Always it remains paramount that you do your own research and you take responsibility. This study is based for a great part, just as a reminder, on the study series called Reken maar, or Count on It in English, but it's a Dutch study series, regrettably, by my good friend André Piet, and it can be found on his website called goedbericht.nl. Some adjustments I made, of course, that have led to this study series. Of course, I encourage you to think critically along, and I gather you have made some notes, questions, remarks, etc. And now is the moment to send them, if there are still some valid questions or remarks, to email them to revago888@gmail.com. So what I will do now is switch to the overview, and then go with you as a kind of comprehensive summary through the whole of the chronology from Adam to this moment, to the year 6000 from Adam. So let's start. So we were starting with the moment Adam was created. So that takes no time because that's a moment. So that was almost 4000 years BC. So then Adam begot Seth when he was 130. We already discussed how we calculated ages, right? So we're not going to go there. Seth begot Enos, Kenan. Everything can be read after this, all these remarks. Kenan begot Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, the seventh from Adam. Enoch, Methuselah begot Lamech, Noah, the 10th from Adam. And that is in 1051 and a half from Adam. So let's continue. Then in Noah's 600 year, so 600 years after Noah's born, was the deluge, the flood. And that was in the year 1651. This plus this is this. So deluge came, that was in the year 2315 BC. That's when the deluge came, when Noah was 600 years of age. So after that, 1 year later, waters dried up. 2 years after that, Sem begot Arpachshad, and then Arpachshad Selah, Heber, how do you say that? The first father of the Hebrews. Heber begot Peleg. In his days, the earth was divided, rent into continents, tore down into continents. Peleg begot Rehu, Serug, Nahor, Terah, the father of Abram, and Terah begot Abram when Terah was 130 years old. We went through that, how we came to that age. Exactly in the year 2000 from Adam, exactly 2 millennia from Adam. That's also the year in which Noah died. I just want you to see the overview of how beautiful the chronology is structured by God. So when Abram was 70, he received the well-known promise of God that was not nullified by the law. When he was 100 years old, he begot Isaac. When Isaac was 60 years old, he begot Jacob. When Jacob was 130 years old, he arrived in Egypt. So the Exodus was in the year 2500 after Adam, from Adam. That was a great year. Grace times grace. Remember, 50 times 50. That's fantastic. So also, like a extra check, his seed, according to Genesis 15, verse 13, 14, his seed from Isaac on would be 400 years in strangers in the land that will oppress them. So, also you see the confirmation in Galatians 3, verse 16, 17, that the law came 430 years after God's promise to Abraham. That's exactly here, 2070 plus 430 is 2500. And that is the year that the law came. Okay, so after that, a demonstration of disbelief. So 40 years wandering in the desert as a period of testing. We already discussed that. 10 years of conquest and allotment of the land. 7 nations were conquered, remember, 2550, and from that on they received their instructions regarding the Sabbath years, the Jubilee cycles, etc., and how they should go about with that. Then the period of the judges start with a duration of 347 years. After that, they wanted a king, so God gave them Saul. He reigned for 40 years. After that, David reigned for 40 years unto this year after Adam, from Adam. And then in the year 2980, Solomon started with the building of the temple and his palace. That took 20 years until 3000. We went through that, and everything is supported by scripture. You have seen it with your own eyes. We continue. After 3000, God spoke to Solomon and with instructions, and Solomon disobeyed. So Solomon reigned still 17 years after that. So he died after having reigned 40 years as well in 3017. After that, for 413 years, 20 kings reigned after Solomon, and that brings us to the year 3430 from Adam. Then, at that year, Jerusalem was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar, and the people were taken into exile to Babylon. So that exile was 70 years in duration. So it ended in 3500, and as exactly also that year, the 70 weeks of Daniel started. 70 weeks is a period of 500 years. Remember, including the Jubilee years. So that started in 3500. And we know how it started with a decree by Cyrus, etc., etc., due to the prophecies of Isaiah. So it was divided in 7 plus 62 plus 1. So now you can see also in the first 7 weeks, Jerusalem was rebuilt and the temple. During the next 62 weeks, Jesus was born on 10 Nisan or Aviv. You can read about that in Luke 2, verse 42. And he was born in 3.5 BC. So in 26 AD, his ministry started when he was 29.5 years old in the year 3992 from Adam, and then was also the end of the 69th week. Then the 70th week would start. Now I hope you also understand, because I forgot to mention that, you also understand now the division between 7, 62 and 1. Because that 1 is taken separately, because if it was not taken separately, you could as well add it to the 62 and make 63. So 7, in which Jerusalem and the temple will be rebuilt, and 63 until the end of the 17th week. Of course. But that 1 was considered separately because there is something about it. And I explained that in great detail, I hope, that 70th week seemed to have started. It seemed to have been fulfilled, but it was not fulfilled because Israel did not accept their Messiah, also not later. So that's important to take that into account. So, very important, that moment that Stephen was stoned and he saw Jesus standing ready to come back, but he didn't come. Very important. So 3999 was the year Stephen was stoned. After that, the Jubilee year, the end of the Jubilee year, and that was also the end of the would-be 70th week. But it was not the real 70th week. It turned out to be not the 70th week. So 36 years after that, then the moment arrived that Jerusalem was destroyed, completely destroyed. The land was left desolate, and that was the moment of the disciplining, the long disciplining period that was already prophesied and mentioned in Leviticus 26 verse 18 to 28. So that, to me, that was a mind-blowing discovery. When I discovered that, I was like, wow, I was really impressed. Long period of 1960 years that ends exactly at the year of Jesus' return. when Israel will have ended the discipline period and will be embraced again by Jesus, so to speak, and will be saved from their tribulation. Fantastic. So let's see. So today we are in the year 2022, which corresponds with 5988 from Adam. So next year, I expect, and it's quite brutal of mine, maybe, I'm not sure, but it's just my take on it. I expect not only the start of the 70th week, but also the snatching away next year, 2023. Also the start, of course, of the day of the Lord. So 3.5 years, or 1297 days later, the start of the Great Tribulation. Let's see, yes, start of the Great Tribulation here. And then here, the return of Jesus, of course, in the year 5996 from Adam, 2030. And after that, I think 3 years, maybe shorter, of revenge of the bowl judgments and the vial, or sorry, the trumpet judgments and the bowl and vial judgments. I think 3 or less than 3 years, and then the rest of the time will be probably will be used for restoration, rebuilding of the earth, because also the nations, all the nations, cities will be destroyed, completely destroyed. So you can mention a city and it will be destroyed. Every city in the world, on earth, will be destroyed. So it will be a huge, how do you say that, rebuilding or restoration necessary, I would imagine, with my human mind. So then we arrive, and so it's a Jubilee year, of course. Then we arrive at the year 6000. I did a double check all these periods here, the length in years of per event, and I also arrive at 6000, 2034. So that's the year I think that the 7th millennium starts. So I hope I was clear. So I will switch back to the slide because there's one more small high, how do you say that, very rough overview, and that is, oops, this one. So just a broad outline again. Creation of Adam this year, from Adam, only from Adam here. Flood of Noah, 2000 Noah died, Abraham born. Here, Exodus, 2500, 3000. The temple and palace completed. Jerusalem ready for priesthood and kingship. Here, the decree of Cyrus, start of the 70th week, 70 weeks, sorry, in Daniel. Here, Jesus visibly goes to heaven. And in the year 4000, 1 year after the stoning of Stephen, the kingdom on hold. Jerusalem set aside, and the real one was Jerusalem destroyed in 4036, of course, and exactly 1960 years after 4036 is the return of Jesus Christ as Messiah and King. And a couple of years after that is the end, marks the end of the human government. So why will there still be a human government after his return? Because I think that he will start from Jerusalem, and then he will establish his kingdom from Jerusalem in Israel, from Israel to the rest of the earth. That's what I suspect. And there are, of course, scriptures. There are some scriptural proofs to that, but that's outside the scope of this study. Thank you very much for having watched this series. And one thing we know for sure, at the end here, we are by a long shot not at the end of God's plan. But when we arrive at the end of God's plan, then it will be fantastic. It will be brilliant. So just take your eye and watch. Thank you very much for your kind attention again, and see you next time.